Good morning and happy first week of Advent. When we first decided to do this sermon series, I will be honest, I was not expecting to be kicking off the Advent season, but spoiler alert, here we are. So, for those of you who may not be as familiar, Advent is the church season of preparation for the celebration of Jesus' birth, which we celebrate on Christmas. It's a time of reflection and for preparation. And so there are four candles that traditionally make up an Advent wreath, which we would light each week leading up until Christmas. And so the four themes, each candle has a meaning. And so they are the themes that structure the Advent season. So this week, week one, we will light the candle of hope. Hope is exceptionally powerful and it gives us something to look forward to. It's what gets us through some of our darkest nights and a reminder that there's still good to look forward to even in the darkest of nights. So, for these purposes, though, when we first started this series, we have slowly focused on Mark 12:31. The second is this to love thy neighbor as thyself. No other greater commandment is there than this. We focused in September on ourselves. In October, we explored who is our neighbor. This month, going into the Advent season, we focus on the verb of the sentence, love. Love is the action of this verse. It's what ties ourselves to the others. I was thinking about this last few weeks, and what surprised me was how many different people, experiences, and things I loved. One word captured in so many different emotions and people. So, to unpack this verse, I decided to research biblically and a little more historically what love might have meant. So, there are a few different types of love we're going to look at. The New Testament was written in Greek, and so I looked at what the Greek types of love were, because not all love is the same. So, this week we're going to look at Eros, Storge, Philatia, Philo, Pragma, and agape love. And I apologize for any of you who may know Greek better than I did because I may have butchered all of these. So thank you for your grace. So the first love that we're going to start with is Eros. Eros is a primal love. It comes as a natural instinct for most people. It's the passionate love. It's displayed through affection. This is the type of love that would be referred to or would be reserved for a significant other. It's a spouse or a partner. For instance, when I define Eros type in my love, there's only one person, which is my husband, Nick. So the next love is Storge. So this is liking someone through the fondness or familiarity. So this would be really the type of love that a parent would have for a child. It's fairly specific because it typically is only related between a parent and a child relationship. The third up is Felucia love. So we went over this in September, but really this would be the type of word that would be the type to describe the love for oneself. It can kind of get a bad rep because sometimes when we think of loving ourselves, you can think of the person who loves themselves just a little too much. You know that person I'm talking about? Um, but in all honesty, this is a necessary love. And in its purest form, it's really the starting point of love because where we start and love ourselves is how we're going to reflect on others. So the next love that we're looking at is philo love. That's affectionate love. Philo love accounts for the love that you feel for parents, siblings, family members, closest friends. It's typically linked with loyalty, compassion, and trust. It's shared among those who have similar values and experiences. This accounts for a majority of the love that you feel. It's most intimate and was really built on experience and loyalty, like we said, alone. So the next one that we have is pragma. This is long-lasting love. This is the type of love that's weathered many storms. It's typically for couples, but it can also be found within close friendships or family members. It's a love that's been challenged time after time after time, and it's just been maintained with maintenance and nurturing. It's when you think of that couple or those people who have been married for so many years, it's typically the kind of love when the passions died down and things have moved on in the world, it's the love that remains. And so finally, we have agape love. Agape love is representative of universal love. Greek philosophers felt that this is the type of love that people feel for other humans, for nature, for a higher power. In Christianity, this is the type of love we're most familiar with. It's a love from God and the love that man gives to God. It's unconditional. It means that we love a person despite his flaws or her flaws or shortcomings. Agape love is about giving to others, sacrificing our time, our energy, and our resources for someone else without expecting anything in return. Now that we have some working definitions for loves and some different ways that you can think of the context of relationships in your life, we're going to focus today on agape love. This is, in my truest of hearts, the belief that the type of love Jesus was referring to in Mark 12:31. It's an action. It's a pure type of love that is freely given with no strings attached. One of my favorite books of all times is Pilgrim's Progress. If you haven't read it, I highly encourage you to consider it. But John Bunyan, who wrote the book, said, "You haven't lived today until you've done something for someone who cannot pay you back." I love this. The belief that each day we have not lived unless we've done something for someone without any strings attached. I'm not sure about you, but I think there's a lot of days that maybe I don't live like this. And so it's good to be intentional. And I think this quote really brings that to mind. So now that we've got some ideas of love and we've narrowed it down that we're looking at agape love, let's talk about the actions involved. For this and to get us thinking, I have decided to have my favorite guest speakers pop in. So I am going to ask Mr. Rogers to share some thoughts on love with us.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you, so let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? This is different, isn't it? I don't usually take off my socks. No, but I've been doing a lot of walking today, and my feet are tired. And I have a little pool of water out in the yard, so I think I'll just soak my feet in that water for a few minutes. I brought these slippers so that I could put them on and walk outside. Yeah, it is different. Let's just go do it. Francois Clemens, hi, welcome.
Thank you. How you doing?
Fine, how are you today?
Fine.
My feet were tired, so I thought I'd just soak them for a while in this water.
Does it make him feel better?
It does. Would you like to try?
Sure.
Okay, here, have my seat there.
Thank you.
Take your shoes and socks off, and I'll go get a chair for myself. It's a surprise to see you here today.
Well, I've been filling out over at the precinct for a couple of days while Joe's away on vacation.
Uh-huh.
Here, pull those out.
Doesn't that feel
That
good?
does feel good. But my assignment's just about over. I'm going to have to leave in a couple of days. Well,
I was just talking with my television friends and thinking about many different ways of saying I love you.
singing is one of my ways of saying I love you.
Oh, I know that. Do you have time to to give a song to my friend and me?
I sure do. There are many ways to say I love you. There are many ways to say I care about you. Many ways, many ways, many ways to say I love you. There's the singing way to say I love you. There's the singing something someone really likes to hear. The singing way, the singing way, the singing way to say I love you.
Cleaning up a room can say I love you. Hanging up your coat before you're asked to do it. Drawing special pictures for the holidays. And making plays.
You'll find many ways to say I love you. You'll find many ways to understand what love is. Many ways, many ways, many ways to say I love you.
I'm so proud of you, Francois.
Oh, thank you, Fred. I like being a human being right here and now. Well, I guess I'm going to have to get back to work.
I always like it whenever you have time to visit with us. Can I help you here?
Thank you.
All right. So, some of you actually here at Bristol might be familiar with Officer Clemens in real life, Francois Clemens. He lived for some time. He's been in Middlebury, Vermont. In fact, a few years ago, I had the pleasure of going to a Handel's Messiah sing-along with Robert Hewitt, where he performed. So I would advise you, if you have a chance, to read and learn a little more about Fred Rogers and Francois Clemens' relationship, because it actually is a beautiful testimony of friendship between two very different people and ways of life. But within this song and this video, there's two beautiful things going on. One is the song and story you heard that is great for children especially, and for us, a reminder of adults about how many different ways we show love. But the other is the beautiful story of love behind the scenes. Mr. Rogers and Officer Clemens are soaking their feet in the pool on a hot day. What a great way to relax. But did you know why they chose this particular scene, or the significance? Mr. Rogers asked him to perform this scene as a social commentary on racial inequality. The scene was actually the second time they performed this song together in this little pool. The first time they did this was in 1969. Like buses and lunch counters, pools became a place of protest during the fight for civil rights. In 1964, a group of Black and white people jumped into a segregated pool at a motel in St. Augustine, Florida. This enraged the manager enough that he poured acid into the water. Fortunately, I should say, the acid was diluted in the pool and no one was injured. But it was the principle and the hatred that went behind that kind of sparked his actions. The two men took off their shoes and socks, rolled up their pants, and swished their feet together in the shallow pool on the hot day. But Rogers and Clemens demonstrated that a Black man and a white man could peacefully share the water. When Clemens had to go, he used Rogers' towel to dry his feet. Rogers left the pool directly after Clemens and proceeded to use the same towel. This casual intimacy exposed the bigotry of denying Black citizens access to pools or other places in society. For the Song of Children, there are many ways to say I love you. It's critical. It shows that we don't just say I love you, we show it. It's our actions that create love. But Mr. Rogers took it one step further. He showed to children during a time in the peak of the civil rights era. He took a moment to send a clear and direct message on where he stood. His wife, Joanna, later in these past few years has come out in interviews, and she discussed how Mr. Rogers was deeply committed to social justice and would often see stories just as this about what happened in Florida and would be deeply affected and moved to portray such scenes. A way Mr. Rogers took an excellent example of loving our neighbor. It is because of the radical way that Mr. Rogers affected the world by simply showing an example of how everyday interactions and everyday relationships and interactions are the only way to show love that will change the world. As we go into this Advent season, whether you're actually a regular in person physically when we get together, Bristol Federated Church member, or if you're someone who's joined our community, kind of like myself actually, who come each week, we're going to be sharing not only in our newsletter, but also on Facebook, a daily challenge. It's a different reflection or action that you could do intentionally to live out Mark 12:31 during the Advent season. Some days are about reflection, some are showing love to ourselves, some days are about our neighbors and giving back, and some are just ways to show we love those in our lives and reimagine how to capture the holiday season in a free and socially distanced way. I encourage you to share your challenges and get involved with your own community and people in your lives. Mr. Rogers reminds us there are many ways to say I love you, and hopefully these next few weeks ahead, as we continue through what has been an exceptionally hard year for many. I hope you remember to love others like yourself and to give agape love freely and often. You haven't lived today until you've done something for someone who cannot pay you back. We'll just take a minute right now, a full minute, to think about someone we love. Let's do this week the first person who comes to mind, very first person who comes to your mind. Think about them. Think about the ways you love them and consider for this full minute just fond memories or wishes or hopes or dreams that you have because of this person. I'm going to go ahead and set my timer now. Thank you. So, whether living or perhaps someone who's passed away, whoever you thought of just now, I bet they are so honored that you just thought of them today. As always, I appreciate your time and letting me share this message in this space with you. Thank you for being my neighbor. And as we go into the Advent season, I hope you're just filled with peace and joy and find ways to celebrate the season, no matter how you're doing it, as long as it's safe and healthy. Thanks so much.